And hit it.
Hello, welcome to a special episode of Myth Informed. I'm Brian Edward, and with me is Sean Frasick.
Hey, how's it going?
And today, as it says in the podcast, we have David Silverman with us. And he's been gone after a bit of a hiatus, and people, especially in these kind of circles, will know he has been the longtime president of American Atheists.
Yes.
He's been an atheist activist his whole life. He said he's an atheist since he was 6, I believe, which is surprising because I don't even remember when I was 6. So he's been an atheist since he was 6. Recently, and if you don't know the backstory, has been involved in quite the kerfuffle lately. So if you really want the full story, I think that to get the backstory, go to Armin Navabi at Atheist Republic's interview of David. It's about 2 hours long. They get into all the detail that you could possibly know. Armin's a great interviewer on that. Dave, I think, is being as honest as he can. So, it's a great interview. So if you want the backstory, we're going to try to not to repeat that, but rather get into some other things. So, but basically the long and the short of it is he was fired unceremoniously from American Atheists, allegedly over financial misconduct, but it more probably for claims of sexual impropriety.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get into all that.
Yeah.
So the overall theme we wanted to make sure we have come across with this interview is we are not drama whores. We don't care about drama. We don't care about talking about people publicly. We don't attack people. When people attack us, we laugh it off. It is what it is. That's not our thing. That's why no one listens to this channel. It's totally fine. I get it. Drama sells, but that's not who we are. However, in this case, we do have a contentious interview of sorts. So a quick backstory. A quick backstory on kind of what happened. So we started this little nonprofit in Milwaukee years and years ago in 2013. Initially, we had an interest in atheist topics. We did events. We did podcasts. We worked with some celebrities that were atheists. We've done some interesting stuff throughout the way. In 2017, we kind of shifted our focus because, in our opinion, which we'll get into this later, religion isn't necessarily the authoritarian ideology that it used to be. There's other ideologies that are authoritarian right now, and we decided to have conversations surrounding those topics. When we had those topics, when we had those conversations, we were ousted by a lot of the leaders, we'll call it the leaders in the atheist world, those that have been doing it for decades, those that really kind of didn't know who we had coming to our events, but had an idea, made quick decisions on people, calling them Nazis and things of that nature.
Right.
It is what it is.
So we had to start the leper colony.
In 2016, we actually had the chance to work with David Silverman and his team at the Second Reason rally. It was a good event. We actually worked with them. We brought the Wu-Tang Clan, the American Atheists, brought them in. We made the connection. It was great. It was a good time.
It was hot.
And you started to see a weird shift in atheism right at the Reason rally. One of the things we did at the Reason rally was live stream it on YouTube. And one of the things we saw was people coming in and just shitting all over everyone that was there. So this is weird
in the chat. In the chat.
Thunderfoot at the time sent a bunch of people. He was talking about it. He was talking shit about the event. A bunch of people came in. It was a weird situation, but we're all about free speech. We kept the comments open. It is what it is. You have assholes. Sometimes there's assholes. It is what it is. So it was the kind of the start of this weird ripple in atheism. 2017. Now, David, I wanted to get your feedback on this. 2017, you have a conference in 2017. One of the things you're on record of saying, and we agree, when atheism hits the mainstream, more people will accept it. So as people say, I'm an atheist, it's not a big deal. Everyone welcomes that. Everyone accepts it. Just like the LGBT community, it's just like other oppressed communities. In the beginning, they're villainized, then over time, they become accepted. One of the ways to do that, and you've brought this up many times, you were really good at it. You went on the news, you did high-profile interviews, you were talking to some very powerful political people. you had Tommy O'Haver. Tommy O'Haver.
So this is at the August.
This is
August 2017
conference. Tommy
It was
O'Haver,
the time of the solar eclipse. That one.
Tommy O'Haver's a friend of ours. He's a Hollywood director, nicest guy in the world. The guy wouldn't hurt a fly. The guy he's worked with Anne Hathaway, James Franco. He's worked with really, really big names. And in 2017, he made a movie about the American Atheist organizations, primarily focused on Madalyn Murray O'Hair and her family and that whole situation, which was really interesting. And the really interesting thing about this was that Netflix was the ones that produced this project. And it actually, not only did they produce it, they put money behind it. They put a bunch of advertisements in it. It actually did pretty well on Netflix. So in 2017, you guys invited Tommy under the guise of, hey, yeah, you made a movie about our organization. Great. We want to show it. You invited him to the conference. Randomly, we're friends with Tommy, and Tommy's like, hey, these American Atheist guys invited me to this conference. Would you guys come with? So we ended up going just because, he invited us. And it's weird how this stuff works out sometimes. So we go, and we're there. And the idea in Tommy's head, this is how Tommy explained it, and this is the emails that he received, was you guys were going to show his movie and talk about it because you guys thought it was a good movie. I saw it. I personally thought it was a good movie. Madalyn Murray O'Hair, she's a complex person. She did some good things. She did some bad things. It is what it is. Instead, what happened was you guys brought in Tommy O'Haver, put him on stage, took a bunch of board members that used to be on the board when Madalyn Murray O'Hair was around, and shit all over the guy for an hour and a half. My curiosity there is is that a board decision? How did that happen?
It wasn't my idea. The idea that I had was bring this guy in, show his movie, and let's have a round table around it. And what the board, there were people on the board that just freaked the fuck out. They were, the movie does show some creative editing and creative license in that it implies in the movie that Madalyn knowingly had a second set of books and that there was some sort of criminal activity. And that is not true.
Okay.
But there were certain board members who freaked out completely. Dillahunty actually threatened to boycott the convention because the movie was being shown.
Wow.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But as the executive director / president of an organization, I work for the board.
Yeah.
So the original idea was to have the movie and show the movie. What ended up happening was I sat next to him because I wanted to try and insulate him to the best that I could and to check with him, and I did a couple times during the event. While people really
they shunned him. We were with them the whole time. They shunned him. They absolutely shunned him.
His comment was
We ended up getting beer and pizza and sitting outside while everyone else at the conference just completely ignored the guy. This is a Hollywood director.
Well, he was an atheist, and he goes
super nice and did a movie on an organization. I would be honored. Here's the thing. Madalyn Murray O'Hair, yes, he took some creative licenses, but one of the things that came up was one of the board members asked him, they said, hey, how come you didn't contact us before you made this movie? He said, I actually emailed you guys 5 times, and no one ever responded to me. So he was working off of biographies that were written about her, which is a fair thing to do. And he also left out shit like she was paying a spiritual advisor who was a former priest. He left out a lot of stuff that she was doing that most people don't know about, and most people would be like, hey, that.
Yeah, it was a really unfortunate situation. It's not what I wanted, and it's not what I designed. I was very excited to bring him in. The idea was to bring him in and to show the movie, and then to have him on afterwards. It was going to be an all-night thing, and to have him, set the record straight as far as what was false in the movie, and provide some entertainment and provide some, creds to this guy.
Yeah.
The old guard on the board. The old guard on the board of American Atheists is well, how can I say this? Very, very attached to the iconization of Madeleine O'Hare.
So are you saying they're worshiping a false idol?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
And they refused to even. One board member actually cried about this.
Jesus Christ.
And like I said, another board member, Dillahunty, he did threaten to boycott the event.
He said to me that this movie was going to set atheism back to 1996.
That's what he said.
That was a weird date. I don't know what happened in 96.
A Netflix movie that's mostly consumed by millennial generation that watch Netflix religiously.
Right. Which was odd, too. And the movie brought in maybe $500,000 of donations, did it not?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that, but it did bring in notoriety to the organization. The end of the movie says Madeleine O'Hare's organization is still fighting for the separation of church and state.
Right.
It's a great plug, and I thought what he did to the licensing, the creative licensing that he took was wrong. Okay, he did imply that Madeleine was deliberately involved in criminal activity, and that's not true.
Yeah.
And
that's in Rudy, they don't actually do the halfback pass to get him on defense.
Well,
there's quite a bit of creative license in a lot of movies.
And the irony of all of this is, if you ask people from that generation that were alive that knew who she was, a lot of people will tell you, "Oh yeah, she stole a bunch of money and left the country." A lot of people, it was like
urban legend
front page when she disappeared, and all these rumors about her stealing money, and then it was like page 32 when they found her dead. No one cared,
Right.
So there is this
it
weird.
Would have been nice. It would have been nice if they had left her reputation a little bit cleaner than that.
Correct.
But there's one of the
which
things
is what Tommy's movie showed. Tommy's movie did.
But I still think they cast her as like a misunderstood hero.
Yeah.
It wasn't in a negative light.
Right.
I think it was. I think that piece I have a problem with, but the rest of it I thought was fine. And it did give a nice plug at the end. It did show the heroic side of Madeleine, as well as the fictional crooked side.
Yeah.
And the real cantankerous side.
And I didn't think it was a terrible movie. I didn't think it was awful. And I didn't think Tommy deserved what he got.
Yeah.
And no, absolutely, for the record, it wasn't my idea to do what happened.
Okay.
That was good.
That was the compromise.
That's good.
The original demand from the board members was uninvite the guy and don't have the movie, because this guy's a terrible, terrible person who did a terrible, terrible thing to American Atheists.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was religious-y. It was religion-y.
Yeah.
It was almost as if Tommy had blasphemed.
Yeah.
Well, no, and he said that he'd been an atheist all his life, but he goes, I finally know how it feels like to be religious. And I said, why? He goes, because I was crucified on stage.
Yeah.
Which is kind of,
well,
I thought it was a funny joke.
And so this is just
it was a funny joke.
This is just an intro to some of our history. So, the theme of the show is professionalism and how to normalize and popularize atheism. So that's the first thing that we encountered with your organization. So that left a bad taste in our mouth.
Well, with that, what's happening? To put it in context, this was this is about, your conference was about 10 days after the Charlottesville, Virginia craziness, right?
Yeah, Charlottesville.
And about 10 days prior to that, our Mythcon IV event started to get trolled online.
Mm-hmm.
And we were facing, people that were starting to organize like a legit deplatforming campaign against the theater.
Yep.
And our Twitters was going nuts. So when we came down to your conference,
it was the start.
I was still calling it. Yeah, it was just the start
and
of
this,
it.
And to just so everyone remembers, Aaron Ron, Seth Andrews were supposed to be at Mythcon IV. They weren't there because they dropped out because of all this nonsense.
And part of the reason I was there was to make sure that they were still cool with the event.
So we were,
because it was getting a lot of attention.
So this was our situation. We're with a Hollywood director that was just shit on and everyone hates, and also everyone hates us now because of Mythcon IV.
Right, we were being called like
really
multiple people at this is not necessarily your fault, but the AA conference had been like, "Oh, you're the guys that are having the alt-right conference."
Yes, right.
Right. Yeah, I
You know,
remember that.
a few
Yep.
people. Now, most of the
literally
people, to
all
be
right.
fair, most of the people at the conference had no idea
They didn't
what was
even-
going on. In
right,
fact,
they
I
didn't
was
even-
talking to a woman in line at lunch. And I was talking. She goes, "Well, what do you do? Are you from Milwaukee?" And I said, "Yeah," because I had a tag on. She goes, "Do you run a conference up there?" I said, "Yes, we do. It's called Mythcon." She's like, "Oh, I haven't heard of that, but like, tell me about it." I go, "Well, we're under protest right now and a deplatforming campaign." And she goes, "Oh, the religious, they drive me nuts." And I said, "No, from other atheists." And
Yeah.
she's like, "What?"
So
And then I asked her. She goes, "Tell me about it."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, it's because of social justice."
Yes.
And she says, "What's social justice?"
she had no idea.
She had no idea, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to explain in the 3 minutes of the lunch line. I attempted to, and I left her confused. So there was just a whole lot of people that just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. So now we do MythCon, right? And now we have Sargon there. We have Armored Shoe, Asra Nomani, Faisal, Ron Miscavige spoke, the father of the leader of Scientology. A bunch of people were there, right? Great event. Then these snippets come out of this event.
Well, they're controversial. All those people that you said were
being called
fine.
controversial,
But our
right. We're being-
controversial speakers are Sargon of Akkad, right? Carl Benjamin Sargon of Akkad, and then also Shoe on Head, June, and an Armored Skeptic, Greg, who are
Yeah.
also YouTubers. Now, I don't think that they're controversial really in any way. I mean, you could make an argument that maybe Sargon is, but June and Armored are not. And we were facing demands from like atheists everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, and we're leading up to this now. So now there's this weird rift that's happening in atheism, right? Now there's like sides. You're on this side, you're on that side. It doesn't make any sense.
When our conference was it intended to be a big tent.
Yeah, our conference was let's bring viewpoints together that don't agree. Let's have these conversations. This is what atheism used to be about. This is what it used to be about, was tackling tough conversations. So we tried to do that. We got vilified, okay? We had the leaders that were there. They dropped out. Everyone's writing shitty statements about us, calling us all right Nazis. And it was and the irony is you had Armored and Shoe on stage talking about, bringing in different viewpoints, talking about how atheism is struggling. What are some of the things we can do to help it? And this was like the last atheist thing we did because
they praised Armored Skeptic in one of his promo videos. Praised Matt Dillahunty, and that he couldn't believe that he was going to be on stage with him.
Now, to our shock, David, we had a couple of interactions with you. Not much. We didn't know each other that well. We've had some run-ins, but then you decided to publicly make some statements about our organization. And we just wanted to play that because we wanted to rewind the clock a little bit and see if you still agree with this.
Go for it.
The love was inspired. The love theme was inspired
I can
by
hear it.
Mythicon.
Wow.
It was inspired by this idea. I used to be the extremist as far as Big Tent atheism. Okay. And I used to say, all you have to do is be an atheist to come and to be included. And people would come to me and say, well,
Right.
Dave,
We're going to reboot this.
what about atheist Nazis? And I would laugh at them. I would
All right.
push
David
them
said he
off.
can't hear
Come
it.
on. There are no atheist Nazis. What is it, one or two?
Yeah.
There's more than one or two.
I'm not sure if the chat can. Maybe
But we're
they
not
can
bringing
let me know
assholes
if
to
the
the
chat
stage.
can hear it.
I think there's a level of intolerance that was exceeded
Yeah.
at Mythicon.
Okay.
What?
So we'll stop it, Dave, if you can't hear because that's unfair.
I can't hear it now.
So go ahead and
The
stop
chat
it,
says
Mike.
it's coming through, but really low.
Yeah. Go ahead and pause it, Mike. So essentially, I'll summarize it. You came out against our event, and you called our speakers Nazis, and you called us alt-right, and you said our conference was full of hate, and you said that your conference was the antithesis of our conference, and you were all about firebrand love, and that ours was all about hate.
And there was unacceptable, what's true, to arrange a conference to bring not only like these kind of speakers and then also these people in the audience.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? So we just kind of wanted to bring us back to that time and like what's going through your head.
So you guys are right. You guys were the alt-right conference. And, I was, at that point in time, I was woke as fuck and proud of it. And I was deeply in bed with this this oppressive ideology of wokeness. I had been told by members of my staff that you guys were terrible, that you guys were awful. I saw the Sargon tweet.
Mike.
I saw the Sargon tweet comment. I don't believe. Well, when I saw the Sargon tweet comment, and when I heard the audience applaud.
Yeah, so it was about a 20-second snippet, right? That
Yeah,
that somebody
I mean,
took
it
on their
was
phone and it went
so
nuts.
obvious to me that you guys were just trolling. You guys were on a money-making attempt to try and promote the worst part of atheism. Remember, I had gone on stage in Charleston, and said we will not have Nazis on our thing. You know, the big tent is not that big, and so I was fired up into this awful us versus them mentality. And you're right, the them was other atheists. The them was the evil, controversial, objectively bad Sargon, who I had been told was alt-right. And what I had seen was him laughing at somebody and saying, I wouldn't even rape you. And then I saw the audience laugh. And so, and again, I had gotten some, in hindsight, pretty shitty advice from certain staff members. And I reacted, and I did that. And I'm sorry. First of all and foremost, I'm sorry. That was not appropriate. And for me to shit on another organization and for me to shit on another convention, it was unprofessional, but it was also morally wrong. It was coming from a good place in that I thought I was doing good at the time because I thought you guys were doing bad at the time. And you know, as I've come through this past year, and really as I've gone through the past couple of weeks, and really as I've gone through the past few days, I've realized how much of a religion I was in back then, how much of a religious atheist I was, in that this religion that we call wokeness, that we have invited into the movement and absorbed into the movement and adopted as a part of liberalism, is a hugely destructive force, not only on a macro level, but on a micro level. It has separated out our movement, but it has also messed with our brains. And it messed with mine. See, the thing is, I've been a feminist for longer than I've been an atheist activist. I've been a feminist, a loud and proud feminist, since.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be 5, right?
What?
Well, you said atheist at 6, so you were a feminist at 5?
No. I was an atheist at 6, but I was an atheist activist at 30.
Yeah.
And I was a feminist, loud and proud feminist from the teenage years, from maybe, let's just say, college. And that was second wave, egalitarian, equal pay for equal work, take back the night, the good kind of feminism. And I was very proud of that moniker. And then as I became an atheist activist and as I became president of American Atheists, what I now realize is that feminism changed under my feet, and I didn't really notice it. It just added on all this other bullshit. And finally it added on this, it became this third wave of feminism, which is very, very divisive and very us versus them. And I was in it.
No.
And I was running an organization, and I had the responsibility to make sure that our organization was in the right place and doing the right thing and obeying the right rules.
Yeah. Now,
And,
you're
it was a really, I mean, it's repugnant to me that I hurt you. it's repugnant to me that I and people like me who reacted to you having a convention and having Sargon on stage, dissuaded you from having further atheist events.
Oh yeah,
that is terrible for me.
Well, this and the thing was, though, it's not even, and this is the thing, it's not about us. There's a bigger problem in atheism when it comes to professionalism and principles. Okay, we, no matter what you think about what we were doing at that event, we are having atheist conversations. We had atheists that are arguing against debate. They're arguing against having different viewpoints come in. This doesn't make sense. Atheism of old was rock and roll. It was anti-establishment, rage against the machine. It was smashing pumpkins. And now it's turned into, I don't even know what it's turned into, some bubble candy wrap, insulated, progressive, militaristic, weird
with
shit.
Warnings on the outside of the CD label.
The want for debate and discourse in that whole sect that we used to operate in is gone. And this is, and this is what, in my opinion, this is what destroyed. It wasn't us, it wasn't you, and there's no need for it anymore. Atheism is over. It's done. And there's pockets in the world like the Middle East, Africa, North Korea, all these other places that need it right now. They need it. But in the West, if you say you're an atheist, for the most part, nobody cares. And that's why even if you look at the atheist organizations now, they're not talking about atheism anymore. They're talking about social issues.
And you're right. And we should take credit for that, because that is the success of the atheist movement. And we should all take credit for that. We should all pat ourselves on the back for the fact that atheism has come far.
Yeah.
And we have done well. Have we achieved the pure, protected separation of church and state? We're very far from it.
Sure.
But at the same time, if you look at what we're doing now, and I'll just, I think this is a good point, and I don't want to pick on American Atheists too much, but American Atheists just filed a lawsuit, and their lawsuit is against a politician who is stopping people from posting on their Facebook page, stopping atheists from posting on their Facebook page. This is a lawsuit quality infringement today. And, we lost the RFRA, but this is what we're fighting against now. And it's just not, it just doesn't seem as important as the international arena where people are getting killed. People are getting hurt. People are afraid for their lives just for being an atheist. And so I totally see that. And I can't agree more with the fact that it has been overrun with this social justice agenda.
They don't want conversation.
Right.
They don't want conversation anymore. They shut down.
And Armin Navabi is, an Atheist Republic, I think, is doing a great job pushing it because, again, he seems to have a little bit more worldwide audience. Yeah. He's from Iran and an ex-Muslim, and he's specifically targeting people. I mean, remember, there's places where you can get killed.
Yeah.
For being an atheist.
Armin is the leading edge. Atheist Republic is the next generation of American atheists. They're the cutting edge. They're the leading edge of the sword.
No.
And the organizations that are left back, FFRF is filing its lawsuits and they're doing their thing, and AHA is also doing their thing. But I mean, everybody else is kind of just saying, you can see them kicking back.
The AHA, you mean the American Humanists Association?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's interesting. We actually invited one of their people to come to Mythcon 5.
Yep.
And not only did we get a no, we got a no, and he was actually their director for social justice.
Yeah.
That was his title. And he not only said no, but he took our email, posted it on his Facebook,
publicly,
and laughed at that we'd
wrote
even
a blog about it.
Deigned to ask him.
Yeah.
As if,
So
this is like the lepers inviting the healthy people into the colony. Like, how dare you even make the invitation?
So let's talk about this. This is the religion of wokeism. Mm-hmm. Okay? The AHA is a good organization full of good people. They're trying to do good. They're trying to make the world a better place. They are infected, as I was, with this pseudo religion of wokeness that is so intellectually lazy that it eschews any kind of dissent, any kind of discussion. My friend Thomas Sheedy just posted something on his wall, on his Facebook page, and it said something along the lines of, "This is Bob, he's a Democrat. This is Jane, she's a Republican. Bob and Jane are still friends because they're adults. Be like Bob and Jane."
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not a difficult thing to say, but Thomas got unfriended by a bunch of people, including atheist leaders, because of that post.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this is because that idea, just the idea of getting along with somebody with whom you disagree is a sin in this religion of wokeness. Just acknowledging that somebody who disagrees with you might have a legitimate point on something.
Yeah.
Is not objectively 100% wrong.
No.
Is against the religion of wokeness.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't say all Republicans are bad and racist and misogynist all the time, and anybody who supports Trump is horrible, if you don't say exactly that,
Yeah.
you're as bad as they are.
Yeah, and what I think too is some of it. What we had and what people didn't really know much about Mythos Milwaukee is we would have like what I call these little mini Mythcons every 2 weeks, where we'd have about 20 or 30 local people, when we would have one person run a topic, and we were incredibly diverse, like politically. Like we had some far lefties, people that were absolutely in support of capital punishment. It leaned a little left, but, I'm maybe a little bit on the right, but, Diem as to who knows. But either way, we had these discussions where people on the right and people on the far left could just talk. And they'd be like, "Man, you're crazy."
Yeah.
And they wouldn't agree, but we could all learn something, see where you're coming from. We'd always learn something. And as soon as the national spotlight was put on us, and when MythCon's thing was running, right? It was the Kim Kardashian sex tape of atheism. Everybody was staring at it. And everybody, we knew it. We would go around to meet people we hadn't seen in a while, and we're like, "Have you heard?" And they'd be like,
Yeah.
yes, they were almost embarrassed for us. And it was weird, but the thing was, when that spotlight came on, that broke up.
Yeah.
So basically most of our people on the left had vanished. And so it's almost like in religion, when, you get the person alone, maybe they'll tell you what they think. But if the bishop's around, you're going to get a totally different story. And I think as soon as that light came down, those are the bishops. And if you're being watched, then they all had to leave. Some went as far as to denounce us. And sometimes I would question their sincerity, but maybe they were caught right in the middle of this.
Well, and one of the things I want to bring up too, when it comes to professionalism, one of the things I noticed when we were in the atheist circles, we would go to ApostaCon, we went to EurCon, we went to
Gateway to Reason.
Some of those, whatever those. And it's funny, the irony for us, because the only assholes we've ever worked with have come out of the atheist community for whatever reason. I don't know why. Ever since we started working with YouTubers, journalists, online personalities, these people are professional. They come ready. They have their talking points. They're dressed for the occasion. This is a professional business. This is a professional setting where they're working. This is their thing, They take it seriously. In the atheist community, it was this weird hookup culture. Everyone was kind of poly or some other kind of weird shit going on. Everyone was hooking up with one another. It didn't take long for us to say, first of all, we're not going to run our events like that. We don't. That's not who we are. Secondly, we knew this shit was going to come out of the atheist community. Look at Richard Carrier. Look at Michael Shermer. Look at Krauss. Look at you. You guys were in this thing where it was cool, when everyone was there, but all of a sudden, if you got too popular, you get taken down. What's your thoughts on that scenario? Where did you see those events? Am I correct in my analysis?
Well, yeah. Atheist events are known. Everybody hooks up, and that happens a lot. And we had, I was fighting from that. I was that's why I had the comprehensive sexual harassment policies for our conventions, because I knew everybody was hooking up, and we knew that of course, because of the religion of wokeness, everybody was dangerous, and everybody needed protection, and everybody needed the nanny state. So we had people with vests walking around, making sure that people, asked permission to touch your left breast and your right breast.
Did you do, like, were you kind of opposed? If you had it your way, would you have had the policies, like the sexual harassment policy, or was that pushed on you? Or
it was suggested to me, and I jumped on it because I thought it was a good thing, and I guess it was. I don't regret having those policies, but I do regret creating a nanny state. I do regret creating the idea, or I should say nurturing the idea, that an atheist convention was a dangerous place. Atheist conventions are by and large not dangerous places.
No.
People did go over the lines and we had to deal with them, but it wasn't dangerous. And one of the things that really happened in the atheist community exploded in the early 2010s.
No. Well, 2001 after 9/11, that was a huge.
Yeah, well, after 9/11, right?
Yeah.
But so the internet explodes and atheism explodes.
Yeah.
And when it exploded, what happened was, I was a volunteer for American Atheists for 14 years before I was president, and I have a master's degree in business. I was qualified to be president of the of American Atheists, but other organizations formed. And those organizations filled niches that were real and valid niches because atheism had exploded so much. However, the people who took leadership roles in those positions hadn't earned their teeth, hadn't cut their teeth. So there were like several situations where somebody was running an organization, a national organization, with zero experience and no clue what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so what we saw was people following instead of leading, and panicking when they should be calm. And we saw this culture of accepting unprofessional behavior from people who should be in professional positions.
Yes.
And it infected me. There's no doubt about it. Looking back on it, I was there. But even in my most unprofessional moments, I wasn't nearly as unprofessional as a lot of the others who had no idea what they were doing. And so we had these conventions, and they were very, very hook-uppy. But also there was this air of danger around them, this air of caution, this air of man bad, woman good, that started with the Atheism Plus movement. And really, even as Atheism Plus died, the mentality did not. And it became an us versus them. The purity tests came out, and the religion of wokeness spread.
Yeah, I really feel like when Atheist Plus, they kind of splintered off, right?
Yeah.
That they would create a schism, right? They had their own, and in some ways, people, like, if a group schisms off, you're kind of like, okay, well, good. They're going to focus on different things, and that's fine. But then they kind of ate each other, right? The Piranhas ate each other, and then they said, well, okay, that didn't work. And then they just co-opted the entire movement. And that's the thing. It was like Atheism Plus was dead. And I'm like, no, it's rebounding and getting in, and it seemed like at some point they were going to win. I remember, like, at the Reason rally in 2016 is when I really started. I spent most of the time it was the first time I'd ever heard the term regressive left. Yeah. And I was asking people about it, and half the people were like, yeah, I think it's a thing, and the other half were like, no, it's not a thing. Yeah. So that seemed like, and there was also Donald Trump was that was started.
And I'll just clarify, it's not just atheism this has happened to. This is just one thing. There's been many things.
And it's terrible to watch what's happened to the atheist movement. And now, so we've got an atheist movement that is desperately trying to remain relevant in America. The international atheist movement is, in my opinion, extremely relevant and will continue to be so. The American atheist movement is striving to stay relevant, and to a degree it certainly still is. As some organizations more than others. Yeah. But what you're seeing is this infection of wokeness that makes enemies out of allies, because you're not ally enough. Even if you're 99% with us, that is not enough.
Right.
And the concept of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption is a sin.
Yep.
You can't do that. So there's separation on nothing, and it's permanent. You're ostracized permanently. And this is infected, or has infected, the atheist movement. That's why I'm just going to speculate, but that's why you got that letter from AHA. Again, not because people are stupid or because people are bad, because they're misinformed. And they think they're doing good, but they're doing bad. This is why you see atheist organizations having convention, cheering about LGBT issues as if it was our win, right? As if the LGBT movement, and I should say LGBT victories, are in any part due to the atheist movement's activities. It's not. And we celebrate the LGBT, which is great, but they don't celebrate us back.
Yep.
And they and so we have this aura where we're trying to take credit for stuff we didn't do. Yep. We're trying to cheer ourselves for things that we didn't do because we had nothing to do. Yep. And so it's kind of sad to see that happening. It's not happening in every organization. I have a lot of respect for Roy Speckart over at the AHA, and I have a lot of respect for Dan and even Annie Laurie over at FFRF, even though we have some personality differences there.
Yeah, they seem to be on mission. I agree with you at the FFRF. They don't seem to have changed much and seem to be on mission. Well, I disagree a little bit with the AHA, which I think is becoming ideological.
I think AHA is symptomatic of you would expect that, right? Yeah. The AHA is symptomatic of this woke culture infecting an atheist organization. And it's done so under the guise of humanism. It's done so under the guise of being good. But there's nothing good in this woke culture. There's nothing humanistic in zero mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. There's nothing humanistic in you're a little bit different from me, ergo you're alt-right.
And they refunded, like at Mythcon IV, the AHA did have a table, and then they asked for a refund like a few days before.
Yeah, well, and personally, the atheist community, there's one religion left that really the atheists should be criticizing, which is Islam. And now you have a bunch of atheists and atheist organizations that not only don't want to criticize Islam, they criticize those that criticize Islam.
There was an article. Again, I'm going to mention American Atheists because sometimes I can be a little petty, but also it's completely legitimate. They tweeted out an article after the New Zealand shooting that criticized Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, criticizing Islam, implying and that said that they were in part responsible for this, which is a completely repugnant, yielding to terrorism. What the fuck is wrong with you type of idea? Okay, we can't. They might. Some white supremacist might hate Islam if we hate Muslims if we criticize Islam.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we still don't have the social responsibility to criticize this awful religion and what it does to people and what it does to actual humans. It doesn't mean we put down the victims of Islam, the women, the girls who are getting genitally mutilated, the gay people who are being murdered, the atheists who are being murdered. We don't leave them off to the side. I mean, Ex-Muslims of North America is a fantastic organization. When was the last time they spoke at an atheist convention? Well, they should.
Right.
The last AA convention, again, I'll mention them, had zero ex-Muslim presence. It's repugnant to me as an atheist leader, as an atheist activist, I should say, for 20 years, 23 years. The fact that we're coddling Islam, the fact that we're afraid to criticize Islam because it's against woke culture. Again, it's Islamophobic if you criticize Islam. You're an Islamophobe, and it's a cultural thing for them to do female genital mutilation. It's a cultural thing for them to throw gay people off buildings. It's not. It's a religious thing, and it's happening all over the place. And there are lots of enclaves here in America where this is threatening other people. We need to threaten Islam back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest
the
thing
entire
is,
idea that we're afraid of it is wholly and deeply repugnant to me.
and politically, the groups that were had Obama's ear in the White House are groups like CARE, in ISNA, and these are pretty hardline groups. I mean, they're taking a lot of the text from Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, these are conservative, pretty hardline groups, but they're not meeting with like Raheel Raza's group, right? And others, and Irshad Manji's group, and the
Ayan Hirsi,
and the Muslims that they ought to be Mir and Azra Nomani, and the reformists that are really, really sharp and doing a lot of good work, and that can be criticized, even if you don't want to take a crap at the religion. You can take about that, and no one will touch it because they're protected under the intersectionality shell.
And there's one other point I want to make on this is the reason why I say atheism is not needed in the West because of a simple thing. How many religious people are showing up to events and starting violence and trying to get it shut down and doing all these terrible things to it? We don't see it anymore. What we do see,
and we're the only event that consistently had to have police.
Yeah, we do.
Our police bill is actually significant.
Yeah, we do see, and it's not just us. It's the IDW when they do events, what just happened to Ruben. I mean, what happened to Andy No on the street. We do see a militaristic version of progressivism that's out there doing it, and the atheists that are in this community are parroting these talking points. Not only are they parroting it, I'll tell you, in Antifa, there's atheists in Antifa. They have to be. Who acts like this? Who tries to shut speech down? Atheists used to be about challenging. The atheists, the Four Horsemen, had to fight really hard to get a seat at the table for the religious to sit there and listen to them and have these debates with them. And, obviously we saw how that worked. It worked out pretty well. And now those Four Horsemen are getting thrown under the bus by atheists. I mean,
because it comes down to a part of the fact that Christians specifically and Muslims as well, but they protect their own, they protect their child molesters, they protect their pedophiles, they protect their rapists. And there's this mentality in atheism that we want to be the opposite of that. We want to throw our rapists to the wolves. We want to show that we're not like that. And that has kind of combined with woke culture to create a witch hunt, to create let's find a reason to hate these guys. Let's find a reason to hate these white men. Even if, it's ridiculous for us to sacrifice the idea of criticizing religion in favor of throwing a white guy under the bus and criticizing him instead. To say that we're not going to criticize Islam anymore because Richard Dawkins does it and that causes violence is such a dramatic departure from even where I was anytime. Yeah, this is a repugnant thing to say, that we have to, well, what are we going to do about that? What's the end result of that? Well, we're not going to criticize religion anymore. Yep. Because if you criticize Islam, it'll cause violence. You better not criticize those Jews because it might cause anti-Semitism. Yep. You better not criticize the Christians because, we want to be fair and equal. So now, we have just yielded our entire movement.
No, you've yielded a lot more than that. You've yielded liberties. The essential liberties.
And don't forget the human beings. So don't forget the human beings.
I just want to. When I was listening to the Armin Navabi interview, you mentioned a couple things. Like you said, I'm not the person I was before. Like this whole ordeal killed part of my brain. How do you feel changed?
Well, I feel damaged. I feel, how do I feel changed? So there's two answers to that question. The first question is, how did I feel changed when I said that 2 weeks ago? And then there's, how do I feel changed now? When I did that Armin interview, I really can't express the level of pain I went through. I really can't express the level of depression I endured. I did contemplate suicide. I did lose everything in my world that I loved. and that included dozens and dozens of people I once called friends.
Yeah.
I had lost everything, and I had gone through, in the Armin interview, I had gone through this, this horrific level of pain, and survived and made it. But it was a damaging thing. It was, I mean, I'm still damaged. I'm still being counseled. I'm still getting help. I'm still on medication. I'm still spinning out. I'm still having symptoms of what my psychologist says are textbook symptoms of PTSD. I still have flashbacks. I'm a damaged person. Now, I am seeing some things that have happened over the past couple weeks since that Armin interview, and in fact, in that Armin interview. Do you remember in that Armin interview, he kind of cornered me on feminism, and he cornered me on believe all women.
Yeah, saying that's not liberal.
Yeah, right. And he cornered me, and it's pretty hard to corner me sometimes. I don't like being cornered. I don't like being logically bested, but he did that, and he did it easily. And I don't like it when people are able to do that to me easily. He did, all is fair, and Armin is my friend, and we're all good, and don't take this the wrong way. But he got me in that interview on that point on feminism. And, I came out of that, and I realized that I had spent the last 16 months healing and thinking about what had happened to me and what had been done to me and who had done what to me. And I hadn't actually considered the cause, the infection of wokeness. I hadn't actually considered how the religion of wokeness was still in my brain.
Yeah.
That I was still religious. And I'd never had a coming out, right? I've been an atheist since I was 6. I never had a religion to atheism experience.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm going through now. As I realize it, as I dissect wokeness, as I dissect third wave feminism, and how it kind of snuck up on me from second wave feminism, and what it represents and what it did to me, I'm learning, and how effortlessly Armin just put me right in a corner on something so basic. Mm-hmm. That's something that had been a piece of my life for 30 years. He just put me right there, and it was because I had never had the discussion. And it was because I had never had the discussion because, well, first of all, I was injured, but also because it's bad to have a discussion in wokeness. It's bad to debate this stuff. No. It's a sin to consider that you might be wrong. And I hadn't done that. And so in the past 2 weeks, I've been thinking about this. And then last week, I went on Sargon.
Yeah.
And
he's an evil Nazi, isn't he?
Oh, my God. He's so evil and Nazi-ish.
Yeah. And you know what? Matt Dillahunty will never tell this story, but Matt actually spoke to Sargon at Mythcon IV after the whole thing, and Matt Dillahunty's arguments got bested unbelievably. I'm obviously biased, but a lot of people saw this. It was terrible. But the thing was, Sargon Carl, he was a professional, intelligent, patient person that had a conversation with Matt, even though it was contentious, without any problems. And they just created this boogeyman around him.
But then, yeah, they had a really
good
argument, like over philosophy and back and forth. But Matt couldn't shake that he might have been talking to Belial himself, like a demon, and that it was because of the Jess Phillips tweet. And he goes, I just can't get that out of my head. And eventually, he had to leave.
Yeah.
Right, because the demon would have maybe possessed him as well, and he had to leave. And I tried to talk to Matt outside, and he said, Brian, Big Ten atheism is never going to work, right? No. And this Mythcon IV was our attempt at this, right? And I said, why, Matt? And he goes, I'm not talking to you. And he just walked away
Yeah,
from
it
me.
was bizarre.
Almost like my question
like a child.
itself was offensive.
Yeah.
And
Almost it's a religion. I mean, it's exactly what you would get when I would talk to like a theist, a super theist,
It's true.
who couldn't talk to me, even though I was making sense, even though I was having a good conversation with her, with them, whoever they may be. But they would walk away because I'm the devil.
yeah.
That's
I
good.
couldn't figure out whether it was
That's a
his
good point.
ego
Yep.
or if it was the wokeness. I don't know.
Let me ask you this, though, David. See, I have this other hypothesis. Yes, I understand ideology plays into it, but just like a religious person or anyone else that's in some kind of weird ideology, authoritarian ideology, there's also another aspect of it. I see Matt Dillahunty, and I saw you in your position, and yeah, what happened to you was terrible. I understand what you guys, you guys saw an opportunity. It's a self-preservation of our organization, our conference, all the things we do. You saw it more. There's ideology behind it, but there's also
He's referring to like
this is how
the criticism of Mythcon IV.
This is how cancel culture works. You saw an opportunity. You have the ideology. You saw the opportunity. How much is it of people just like preserving themselves in this? Do you really think Matt's bought into this ideology?
A ton. That's the thing about cancel culture and call-out culture.
Yeah.
If you don't toe the line, you're next.
Yeah.
I mean, did you feel that though? Did you feel that like when you were doing it,
Oh, yeah.
that?
Oh fuck yes! Oh fuck yes! Because people were talking about boycotting our conventions all the time,
Okay.
and it was a fear-based decision-making process.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be canceled. We didn't want to be called out because the social justice warriors were so powerful, and we would lose so many members if we did this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's absolutely this fear component, which is it's fear. It feeds the virtue signaling, which is what you got from AHA. That post that AHA made about you was surely insurance in part against any sort of a backlash that they might have, that other people might have against them.
And that was actually a conscious thought that like part of this would be an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh sure.
Come on.
Oh sure. And it's true, and it's rampant.
What did you have any like cognitive dissonance about that? Like that there were times that you're like, ah, shit, what am I doing? I mean, like what's going like what or is that just a passing thought?
Well, of course, you don't notice your cognitive dissonance until you actually look for it, right? And the thing about this religion of wokeness is that you're dealing with Satan here. You're dealing with people who are not like you and therefore are bad. You're dealing with people like Sargon who don't toe the line and are therefore alt-right. Yeah. And you don't want to be that. So yeah, there's a cognitive dissonance in that I was all about big tent atheism, and now I'm talking about, all right, well, we're going to be in this portion of atheism. And yeah, that did trigger with me, but there was so much riding on that in my brain that I just put that aside.
What about,
this is something that I had to do. It was a place I had to be.
What about but you've dug through the Bible, right? You've dug through tons and tons of religious literature, right? And you've opposed them many, many times, but thought, well, I got to really know their stuff, and I'll be better.
Yeah,
did you you look back at Sargon stuff?
Yeah.
Did you watch the whole video of Mythcon and this and that? Like, when why not? What? Because you do it with the religion.
I had Nick Fish in my office telling me all sorts of horrific things about Sargon, all sorts of horrific things about Mythcon because they hosted Sargon.
And did you say Mythcon because was that we always thought that was a personal dig that you weren't calling it by the right name, like Mythcon versus Mythicon?
Oh,
or was that just
was not a personal dig?
Okay, it's just a mistake. All right.
But it was, I was being. And I take full responsibility for not watching the video, but no, I didn't.
But Nick
watch
Fish
the
is
whole
in the
video.
office saying all this stuff, and you're just like, all right, I buy it.
Well, this is what's happening. I mean, we were all part of the same religion. Now, an insider was telling me that this guy is an outsider, and I looked and I saw the clip, and I saw people laughing at this rape joke, and fuck that.
Yeah.
And these guys are putting that guy on stage, and look at the audience that they're attracting.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah,
fuck
but
all
when it was
that.
cheering, I mean, what was for those that didn't see the clip, like basically, Thomas Smith comes right at Sargon. I pleaded with Thomas to please not talk about the tweet and only talk about the issues, but instead he's like, you felt it okay and permissive to tweet to a member of parliament who is herself a victim of sexual assault,
Extremely
I
powerful.
wouldn't even rape you.
Yeah.
And then Sargon goes, yup. And then the crowd cheered. Now,
Yeah.
are they cheering because it's an obnoxious tweet? No, it's an obnoxious tweet, right? But are they cheering for that? Are they cheering that he won't back down?
And he's not going to get shamed.
Yeah, that he refuses to back down to cancel culture. That's what they're cheering about, and not the actual offensive tweet, which Sargon himself will say
has
it's
admitted,
offensive.
Yeah, purposely.
And it was an offensive thing to say. I will go on record as saying it was not a fucking threat.
Right.
I have been told so many times since I went on Sargon's show that
Rape
that was
taunt.
a tweet. That tweet was a threat to rape her.
Right.
And he actually said, "Ha ha ha! I wouldn't even rape you from the stage." Was a threat to rape.
Yeah.
And I gotta say something, because this makes me very, very angry. I have been threatened.
Yeah.
I have been actually really, really threatened. Call the cops. I know where you live.
Yep.
I'm going to come to your house tonight or tomorrow night, and I'm going to sneak into your house, and I'm going to cut you from your belly to your gullet while you sleep. And then I'm going to do the same thing to your wife and daughter.
Jeez.
Hey, have fun getting on the stage today. You're going to be getting on the stage on your feet, but I'm going to be in the audience with a sniper rifle, and you will be leaving the stage in a
Yes.
body bag. I have
That's a threat.
been threatened
Yes.
over and over and over again. I wore a fucking flat jacket to give a speech every time because of all the threats that I've received. And for people to say that what Sargon did was a threat, it's asinine. It's
Right.
fucking asinine.
Yeah.
It was
And
a
what
political
shows you
stunt,
is how
is what
much
it
they're
was.
willing to demonize, how much they're willing to stretch this obnoxious, wrong thing that he said and make it into something evil just so they can hate him, just so they can hate me for being on his show.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much people are willing to twist things and not actually be skeptical at all, because again, skepticism is bad.
True.
And you know, shitting on people who are outside of the perfect purity test is good, even if you have to lie.
So does this make you like reconsider? Like you've always said your website's called Firebrand for Good, right?
Yeah.
And you've always called yourself an atheist firebrand, right?
Right.
You know, religion deserves to die. But does
Religion does deserve to die, yes.
But does that? But what my question is like, does what you've gone through make you reconsider like being a firebrand? Because when I look at like the Me Too people and some of the people that came after you, I mean that is the definition of firebrand.
Just for a different ideology.
No. I'm a firebrand for good, and I think
But
that
they
good
you
has-
know that they think they're a firebrand for good too.
and I think that we all have to be that, and I think that we have to understand that they are trying to make good too. I'm always going to be a firebrand for good, and I'm always going to have good intentions. Even when I was shitting on you guys wrongly, I had good intentions. I'm going to continue to do that. What I think it has done
Go on.
is raise the awareness of the fact that I think my definition for religion may have been wrong. I look at this wokeness and I see every single trait of religion in it except a God.
Mm-hmm.
And I see fundamentalists. I see a Torah and a Talmud. I see a
Original sin.
original sin.
Mm-hmm.
I see shunning.
Yep.
I see
Purity test.
call out culture. I look at the Mormonisms, the Mormons, and the Mormons have this thing where if you look out after each other and you look out for people who are impure and you point them out, and then they get ostracized.
Yep.
And they don't come back.
Yep.
So it's minus God and also minus forgiveness,
Yeah.
right? There's no altar call and there's no reconciliation.
No chance, because forgiveness itself is a sin. So look at this. Okay, I was falsely accused. I have been hated for the past 16, 17 months because of these false allegations. Then I come out with firebrandforgood.com. And on firebrandforgood.com, I put all my evidence, and my evidence supporting my innocence is substantial. Photographs, recordings, eyewitnesses, a polygraph test, a lot of stuff that establishes my innocence against these false allegations. Okay. Some people, a good chunk of people, still hate me. They won't look at the evidence. And even if they do look at the evidence, even if they do say, well, okay, it looks like he didn't do it, but he still committed adultery, and that's bad.
No.
So they search and they find and they wiggle their way into hating me, because I cannot be redeemed even if I'm proven innocent. I will never be redeemed by these folks.
Yeah.
Even so this is one of the one of the ideas, one of the aha moments that I've had over the past couple of weeks, a couple of months, this one, is that I've been acting like a guilty person, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to act like the innocent person I am, and I'm going to get hated on by a bunch of people who wrongly think I'm a bad guy. And they are good people. They're trying to do good. They think I'm bad because they are a member of a religion which says that the accused is always guilty, and that redemption is a sin. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness is a sin. Under any circumstances. There are people out there who are afraid to be my friend now because there are other people out there who will see it and unfriend them. And that's the way this call-out culture works. And this is, nobody here is evil. No. Okay? Everybody here is trying to do good, but they're infected with this religion, which I think we need to worry about.
No, we do.
I'm a separation of church and state activist, but we need to worry about this religion getting into the state. We need to worry about this religion, codifying what words we can say and what we don't need due process if you're accused of sexual assault because we believe all women.
Exactly.
It's an insidious process, but we have to worry about this as separation of church and state activists. I think we have to worry about the separation of
ideology and state
and the government.
Yeah, ideology and state, and it works the same way. Yeah. You mentioned that you didn't even get to. I listened to on your website that there, and I can't remember who the guy is. What the board of directors guy that is terminating you, and you say, do I not even get to hear the allegations against me? Right, and he said no. And it's funny, like on college campuses in Title IX, that's absolutely what happens. If you get accused, you do not have a right to face your accused. You do not have a right to know even what you're charged with. Mm-hmm. So, it's already happening.
And just to put this in perspective, American Atheists had a written policy, which I wrote, by the way. They had a written policy requiring due process in this kind of thing. Yeah. And they legitimately and deliberately skipped over their own written policy because that's not allowed.
Right. Well, there's this thing.
Once a woman says you're guilty, you're guilty.
Well, no. What you're not guilty, but it's a hell in purgatory, right? Like purgatory isn't supposed to be nice, but it's supposed to be tough, and it's called credibly accused. Right, so you don't. The guilty is a higher standard, and then maybe you don't meet that, but then you certainly meet credibly accused, and that's enough. That's enough.
And but what is credible is determined by the evidence.
Well, exactly. This is what I mean. It's a made up bullshit thing. Yeah. This is my point. Is credibly accused is anything. Right, yeah. that it's a bullshit standard that doesn't have a standard, and but once you're tarred with that, you're as good as guilty. So it's like maybe you didn't get nailed, like OJ didn't get nailed in the criminal case, but you got nailed in the civil case. It's kind of justice.
And it's also interesting too in any other company that has an HR department that there's always an investigation. So I don't know. You guys must not have an HR department or whatever that, but
no, the HR person was Nick Fish.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh.
Are you serious?
Toby.
Yep.
All right.
Toby from The Office. So one of the things, what Carl is very good at, and he's actually instilled this into me. When people screw me over, I'm not, I don't, I laugh it off, but it's not like I'm like jumping to talk with them again or like have any type of road to redemption. What Carl's kind of taught me more is, we have to offer a path of redemption to people, obviously depending on the crime. Peter Boghossian's brought this up many times. That's one of the things we're missing right now. Yeah. What is the path to redemption?
And the religious get this right. Like being Catholic, I don't know if you've ever gone to confession. there is something wonderful about it. You know,
there was a P.Z. Myers wrote an article. P.Z. Myers, one of my many former friends who has decided that I'm guilty. He wrote an article on Firebrand for Good, and the title of his article was Dave Silverman Fails Redemption 101. And the whole concept of this article is, okay, Dave put out his evidence. I'm not going to address any of the evidence. He doesn't address any of the evidence. But he concludes this really short article with Dave does not get redeemed. Yeah. Nobody gets redeemed.
Yeah.
Why?
Okay, there is nobody.
What was his reasoning?
I can think of 0 people who have been thrown out and shit on by the regressive left, but are now okay. I can think of 0 people.
Yeah, it's PZ Myers, Sean.
You can
it's
start
a
with,
Goldberg
who the
machine.
fuck is PZ to say I'm redeemed or not? I'm not going to need redemption because I'm actually an innocent person. But think about the fact that nobody gets redeemed.
Well, remember PZ himself was accused, right? Now, and he'll vigorously fight for his innocence in that case. Yeah. Yet he's believe all women in every other case. So he did make a little carved out exception for himself.
Believe all women except for his student.
Right. He bought an indulgence. So you got to figure out how to buy those. Yeah. Like going back, and again, it's interesting how you're saying you're kind of evolving, even in this 2 weeks, and I don't say you're not, but there are a couple of things that you mentioned. You were kind of like upset, about like selling Aflac and so on and so forth, and I remember thinking, well, some people sell that for a living, and I thought, you shouldn't have to be ashamed on that, right? At all. I mean, Affleck's a good product. I'm in sales too, so I was critiquing the sales pitch, but I don't think you were trying to do that. But here's what the point was. You're like, it getting hung up on, and you said, because the rage, it builds in my blood, the righteous indignation, the guilt and shame pound me. Like the righteous indignation. Like what would you mean by like the blood boils? What are you thinking there when you say that? Or was that a snapshot in time?
By many people at the same time. I have been wronged. I have had my back stabbed by my staff. I have been wronged by my friends on the board. I have had my due process, the skepticism itself, the due process in the policy which I wrote, completely dismissed. And let's not forget the fact that Rose and Beth Presswood lied in order to take me down. There were a lot of people who did some dishonest shit, okay? Dishonest shit, not from one direction, but from multiple directions. Immoral shit from multiple directions. Unhumanistic shit from multiple directions. And yeah, I'm trying to get past it. And I think this idea that wokeness is a religion is actually helping me put that anger down. But first of all, let me state that Aflac has a really good product line, and I'm proud to sell it. I have no problem selling Aflac, and I have no problem being a salesman. I've spent a lot of years of my life being a salesman, and I'll sell Aflac just as much as I'll sell AT&T or any other thing that I've sold. Yeah. It's not a problem, but my point is that having everything that I loved, having achieved what I had achieved, and having it taken away from me, not because I did something and got caught, but because people lied about what I did, made it bad enough to kill my career, and did so out of what apparently is personal gain. Yeah. That puts a rage in me, I will admit that getting hung up on when I'm making my cold calls is still irking me, because I used to be president of American Atheists. I had everything, and
it's part of the gig, though. I sometimes get told to get lost.
Sure, and you move on, and it's fine, and that's part of the job, and I'm doing it. My indignation is about the fact that I have a master's degree. I have 74 patents, and by the way, I wrote a book about how I changed the country with my brain. Yeah. Okay, and that book tour went to 7 different countries. I wrote a book about how I changed the United States of America with my brain.
Yeah.
And I can't get hired. I can't get hired. I have 74 patents. I can't get hired. Nobody will hire me. The indignation comes from the fact that I live outside of a salary. I am earning commission only because nobody will hire me, because I'm poison, because people lied.
Yeah. And
that makes me rage a lot.
And you've brought this up. You think there's a bit that it was because you were the American Atheists. I disagree. I think you were the president of a nonprofit that had a really good annual income, that worked with the media, that did amazing events, that did all of this stuff. So there's a lot of marketing behind your experience. It's the Me Too, and the fact that you got fired, and that's where American Atheists really fucked up. First of all, I will say this: there is silver lining. American Atheists will be going out of business sometime in the near future anyway, so at least you got a jump start on a new career and looking at down different paths, because you can't continue to operate the way they do, losing members year after year, being a part of this.
Members when I was there, but I mean,
I've seen the numbers.
I can't imagine them making members now, given what they're doing.
I've seen the numbers, and you see the split now, and you also see, people, they don't care about that argument. They're fighting a different fight. Even the atheists are fighting a different fight right now.
There's nobody motivating people to join the fight anymore.
Yeah. And there's no doubt. Again, there's no doubt that in these allegations, it's certainly not the way that BuzzFeed puts it in there, right? Yeah. And there's certainly not enough evidence to convict you. The problem is this credibly accused thing, and I get what you're saying on righteous indignation, but what I wanted to challenge you on that is that might be the anvil that holds you back, right? It's the same righteous indignation that drives them, right? That they're going to destroy the patriarchy at any cost. That righteous indignation that that there is a rape culture. So if you need to get flattened with it just to get to the men that actually do it, then so be it, right? The same righteous indignation that somebody could, that you dared to draw a picture of Allah. That this is. That's what I worry about, that I would kind of encourage you maybe to get past that, because as much as you lost, you did gain something. I remember you said that 5% of your friends had stuck with you. You said you felt something new about friendship that you hadn't felt before. That's actually a gain. Yeah. That's actually a gain. And in some ways, if
the best thing that happened to us.
If you are under the sway of ideology, in some ways by breaking out of that's something good. It's like it's Neo in the Matrix. Okay, it's not carpeted floors anymore, but you have a new lease on life in some way. So I guess I don't, if you want to make that forward, I thought the righteous indignation might. I kind of don't like that phrase anymore, because how do you know when you're right? So many people think they're right.
And so many do, and a lot of people, everybody does, right? Yeah. Everybody thinks they're right. Nobody does. Very few people.
But it's that humility. It's intellectual humility that I think that is maybe the flip side to firebrand, and we need some intellectual humility to go with that.
Well, I think intellectual humility is a great concept, and it is something that's completely lacking in woke culture, right? Because the reason that you don't debate is because you're so sure that you're right, and you don't even need to hear the other side. You are right. Yes. Sargon is evil, and anybody who likes Sargon is evil. And if you try and tell me that it's not la 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 la, you're a fucking Satan.
Yep.
So intellectual humility, yes, but the other thing that's helping me to put down this rage is this, and it's just been. And frankly, it's been since Armin, and even more so since Sargon. This is new. This is a place where I am now, where I'm in a complete transition, because I went on Sargon's podcast, and there are thousands of comments on that podcast, and I read them. And they all say the same thing.
Never read YouTube.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's a dangerous thing.
Never
they say,
read YouTube comments.
Well, no, I think it was a good thing for me to see this, because everybody was disappointed in the fact that I was still sticking to this religion, And
Yeah,
I
that
was
you
still
had the
part of it.
hardest time of you like letting go of the term feminist, right?
Indoctrination is hard, and I still don't want to let go of the term feminist. I have, however, completely eschewed the term of third wave feminist. I am definitely not one of those. I'm not regressive. I am a second wave feminist, but what does that mean and how relevant is that today is the question. Do I think that women are fully deserving of equality? Yes, I do. Of course I do, and I think I'm 100% behind bodily autonomy and women's choice and you know, all of the basics, you know, equal work for equal pay. The question is, what place does that have in today's society? And I got to look for data. And I think moving forward, what I found is that a lot of my positions were based on faith. I hadn't looked at the data. And so now I'm looking at data. I'm actually looking at data, actually doing the research myself to try and figure out what is where. And this has been a very positive change for me. The idea that I am taking control of my own mind. And yes, I have better friends now than I ever have. And they're fewer, but they're much better. But also, I'm looking at the data, and I've lost everybody who's going to leave me because of Me Too. I've lost everybody on the regressive left who's going to leave me. So I've got nothing to lose by saying, I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to make my own decisions, and you should too. And I think this has been a really positive change in me. And the other thing is talking about the rage. Let's look for a moment at Rose, who made the first allegation. She and I played. She was after me all day. She made a full day play for me. I got pictures. And she said to BuzzFeed that she was afraid that if she didn't play with me, I would do something bad to her. She was afraid that I would affect her career. She was afraid that I would somehow negatively affect her. And then she said I was really, really drunk. And I mean, she was not drunk. And I don't believe for a second that she was fearful that I was going to do something against her. She was making a play for me. She did so all day long. She wanted a job in exchange for sex, and she was making that play. Now, when I was talking about that righteous rage, I was thinking about what a terrible person she is for having lied about being drunk, for having lied about feeling threatened, and for lying about when I told her that she couldn't have a job. She said that I said that she couldn't have a job after we played, after we had sex, but it was before. And she must know that. And I raged at this horrible person who did this terrible thing for me. And what's helped me, because you talked about putting down the anvil, is realizing, again, that wokeness is a religion. And that the believers of the religion aren't stupid or evil, they're victims. And that Rose was probably convinced that she was in this culture, that it was a good thing to take men down because all men are guilty anyways, and taking them down is a good deed because if they're doing something small over here, they're doing something big and bad back there, and there's a woman back there who isn't able to come forward, so it's up to you to do this job. And it's a good thing for you to do it, and if you do it, if you lie just a little bit and take this guy down for something he didn't do, you're probably taking down a guilty person, and we as a society are going to hold you up as a hero. So if you think about that, and if you make the analogy, and if you take the analogy to the extent where I'm going, where you actually assign religious behavior to this ideology, you see Rose as a victim just as much as me. You see Rose as a victim of this mentality, and I don't even know if this is true, but I'm seeing it in a different light, and it is helping me to realize that there's a possibility that Rose thought she was doing good when she lied.
Right.
And so I have to, I have to try and be humanistic.
Well, I have a
I have
thought
to
on
try
that.
and be generous.
I mean, I guess in that whole situation where I think, and you may have admitted this already, where I think you went wrong is, again, the age difference and the power differential is something.
Yeah.
And just probably you wanted to avoid that situation. The other thing that I was kind of like,
this is not a lesson in Dave makes great decisions.
Yeah, right. And then I was like, well, no condom? Anal? Really?
Right,
Holy shit. What
This
about
is
just
not a
making
lesson
out
in
the whole
Dave
time?
makes great decisions.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So and that's all right. So but it's good to cop to that at the beginning, because otherwise, we're not being fair. But what I would think is what happened is maybe post encounter, maybe she's like, I don't, maybe she was slightly negative about it, slightly positive, maybe totally neutral, confused, who knows. But remember, that's 6 years ago. Think of what did you remember cancel culture and woke culture in 2012 at the first Reason rally? No. Right? Was there a whole lot of division in atheism? Not really. And my elevator gate had just happened. I didn't know this then, right? I mean, you could still make The Office back then in 2012, right? You can't make that anymore. So memories can change, right? That you've replayed this, and as it goes, like you could then later think, crap, now that I look back on it, I didn't consent. In the same way that I once looked very positively at the religion that I held, and then later at a different time looked very negatively at the religion. Now I could go back at individual instances that maybe I was being taken advantage of the whole time, when before I felt like, this is amazing, I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. So what culture that could have dictated that, and those memories could be changed, and she's just looking at that from a different angle. You can't retroactively withdraw consent. That's just not a standard that will lead anywhere good. Anywhere good.
And that's not rape.
Right, because then
there are real victims out there who are
correct.
I mean,
and you could retroactively put in consent then.
A livelihood by saying, "Hey, look, these two women lied about sexual assault.
Yeah.
They're forcing me to choose between being a nothing, or being disappearing because of false allegations, or coming forward with the fact that these allegations are false, thereby hurting the actual victims." And I know this. I'm completely aware of the fact that there are future victims of rape who are going to feel more resistance to coming forward because I'm on this show saying Rose and Beth lied about sexual assault. Mm-hmm. But they did. And nobody's blaming Rose and Beth for making those decisions.
Right.
They're blaming me.
Yep.
Right.
I'm the bad guy, not them.
And it's the withdrawing consent retroactively. I think that's what's happening. But you could insert consent in retroactively, right? I mean, you could have somebody that was legitimately raped and talk them into the fact that they weren't.
Let's just also say
that's bad too.
I agree 100%. Trust but verify. But I mean, even in the case of the Catholic Church, when these kids were molested, it's taken them 8 years to come out because there is a shame spiral there. I mean, we have seen victims that commit suicide, they get hooked on drugs, they do all this stuff. But I agree 100%. I mean, even the scenario that she set up, I mean, it's suspect, and unfortunately, this didn't need to be in public, and that's again why it's our mission not to talk shit about people publicly and do all that shit. This is what it turns into. This person may have done this because she was doing right when she thought she was doing it, and then may also apologize in the future, in which case you already, you that doesn't do anything, So
I disagree. I really want her to apologize and retract.
I know you
I really
do.
want both of them to.
I know, and I agree with you. It would be great for you.
It would give me some. It won't give me back my job. It won't give me back my friends, and it won't give me back the time I've spent in horrible pain.
Right.
But it will give me closure. It is a humanist thing to do. They should both recant.
Yeah.
And I think that their friends should put pressure on them to do that. Especially their friends who know they're lying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing too. I mean, we had Dillahunt at Mythcon IV. He was gloating about how Beth was hooking up with all these other chicks. It was the weirdest shit I've ever. I was like,
no, that was actually at AACon.
Oh, it was at AACon.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah,
he did a weird brag.
She's hooking up with a bunch of chicks tonight. It's great. I'm just like, what? So
that was bizarre.
Obviously, they had their own thing going on, So that's
he vetoed me. That's why Beth lied. I suspect.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right, and that certainly complicates things and makes things awfully embarrassing, right? And probably a bad call on the choice as opposed to the consent portion.
David, I'm sorry, Brian, we're running out of time. Our producers running out of time. So David, we appreciate you coming on. We had a contentious thing with you in the past. We felt unfairly because we never did anything to really egg you guys on. We just were doing our own thing. I'm glad we had the discussion. Mm-hmm. We're going to continue to do our own thing. When people try to tell us what to do and what we can and can't do, then we know we're doing something right. That's just always been our motto. So we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you giving us all this time. We'd love to have you on again and talk, this
other stuff.
Yeah, this can go. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
this can go on and on and on and on.
It's good to be able to pick your brain like this. Like in some ways, I feel like we're asking if the wife is saying something like, all right, well now I need to know all the details. Like it actually does help to hear what your thought process was, because there were times that Sean and I would send the Facebook post back and we were just like, it's like and it's upsetting because when I heard you say, and I'll kind of end on this, like you're like how you were being shunned and and how everybody had left you, and I thought, the same thing that happened to us, like all these people that our group was so much larger. And some of those people I was good friends with that come over. We'd have parties at this house all the time and they don't come anymore. And it sucks because we've gotten to that shun too. And I was like, is that going through his head? Because I was like, because we took it on the cheek too. And so it's good to hear that because,
Yeah, and I will say this, though, one of the things you will hear is you're on the other side. Everyone's already saying it. Oh, David's on the other side. There's no sides. There's people that appreciate...
I'm on my side.
Yeah, there's people that appreciate dialogue and uncomfortable conversations, and then there's snowflakes, So those are your two sides.
And the snowflakes can be on the right, too. It's not a left thing.
And that's, totally up to them. When I have an issue is when they start harassing people and calling venues and telling people calling them rapists and rape apologists and Nazis. That's when I have the issue. But the thing is, what you will notice as you're working with, the people like Sargon, the IDW types, Lauren Chen, Armored Chief, all these people, you'll see that they're actually not only are they professional, which is great, but they enjoy tough conversations. They enjoy the type of stuff that you like talking politics and religion and all that stuff. And that's what the atheist community is missing. And they really fucked up when they decided to shun an entire 90 online personalities and say, oh, you guys are the worst, we're never going to work with you, when those were the people that really they should have embraced and brought in and said, look, let's have these conversations. I don't agree, but let's have them. We've had progressives at our events that have been awesome. We've had centrists, we've had leftists, we've had conservatives. We actually had Lauren Chen, we love Lauren Chen. We actually had a debate on religion with her, a really fun one. It was, really professional and it was great. It was like, oh my God, we're having a debate on religion again. I never thought that would happen. So you will see that on the other side. These people are awesome. Don't listen to the hype. Twitter's not real life, and that's one of the things we always have to remind ourselves. It's not, But again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
I want to take a moment to thank you guys for having me on. Despite the contention of the past, I am a professional. You guys are professionals, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and clear this air and to apologize on air for the sins I committed in the name of the religion that I am now discarding finally. And I am meeting these people on the alt-right who are absolutely not alt-right. Yeah. What most people would call slightly left of center, otherwise known as alt-right. And they're nice people. They're good people. And I am seeing the bile from the left. When I went to those Sargon interviews, when I went to the Sargon comments, all of those Sargon comments were criticisms of me and and the positions that I was taking. If I look on the left, if I look on my Twitter feed, the aggressive left they're not criticizing me.
No.
They're just calling me names.
Character attacks. Yep.
They're oh, he's going to the right. He's going to grift. He's a rape apologist. He's an alt-right now. They call me alt-right. How asinine is that?
Yeah.
But they're desperate. They're desperate to make me bad. And you know what? Life is too short to try and make good people bad. Life is too short to let people who try and make good people bad make your life bad. So I'm going to embrace humanism. I'm going to embrace data. I'm going to embrace knowledge, and I'm going to take the positions that I'm going to take, not based on whether or not people on Twitter will like me or anybody will like me. Right. I'm going to take the positions based on the facts as I look at them. And I think everybody else should do this. And look at the facts, look at the data, make your decisions, and trust but verify. Yep. False allegations kill. They almost killed me. And I think everybody needs to adopt the mantra that false allegations kill, and that people who make false allegations are really doing a evil fucking thing that they shouldn't do. It's not okay. It's not cool. And it doesn't make up for what this guy probably did to some other imaginary woman somewhere down the line. False allegations are a terrible thing to do to a human being. And I think we need to bring that into our culture as we bring back into our culture the idea of looking at data and, that whole thing about civil discourse.
Yes. And I just want to point that this is my last point, too. We work with Tim Pool, and he's all over this. The escalation in social politics and politics is insane. It's gotten to the point where they're firebombing buildings, and we have to calm down. We have to come together. We have
Temperature's high.
We have to get off of Twitter. We have to talk to people we don't agree with. This is what atheism was built on in the first place.
That's what the Binds IRL conference was all about.
And the atheists should be leading the charge, which they aren't anymore. So you have to have ostracized groups like us and the IDW and people like that putting on events to have those discussions.
And I will be a part of that charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our event that we created, that the thing that I liked about the atheist community was even not so much that like the gone thing, but as much I really felt like I could table any question.
Yes.
There. I could tell people that guess what? Like at least at the beginning that I voted Republican 90% of the time. Yeah. Right? That's true of me, right? Like but no, but they'd be like, why? That's weird. Like and it's something, but I wouldn't get ripped for it. I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think about like so that's the kind of culture that we wanted to create. And I want the same person to be like, you know what, Bernie Sanders should be the one that's be elected. And instead of me saying commie, I say, why do you think that? Right? Yeah. That's the good thing. So I guess I didn't end on what?
It's crazy shit, right?
It is
civil discourse.
It's civil discourse.
You disagree with and not demonizing them and making them Satan immediately. Yeah. Crazy shit.
Yeah. And what I'd end on is like, beware the righteous indignation. It can be a very dangerous thing. And then always like, and I say to this, and that's not just for you, it's for everyone. But never enjoy that adversarial process more than getting at the truth.
Yep.
So
thanks again, David. Just stay on for a sec. Mike's gonna end the show here. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in. We'll have someone else. Have a good night.
All right, thanks,
Mike.
guys.
Yeah.